Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, and welcome to day two of Laval Virtual 2021 here on the vertical track. I'm Daniel Dyboski-Bryant, founder and director of Educators in VR and director of virtual education and platforms at the Virtual World Society. And what an honor it is to be hosting once again the education and training track today. And I'm really excited about the program of speakers we have lined up today who are each in their own way at the frontier of this exciting and important industry. So today in this session, we will be hearing from James Sopisa of Massive Immersive, Alain Goudet of Neoma Business School, Cécile Tézenas du Moncel of HP, Julien Cazarin and Guillaume Depré of Inetum. But first, let me give a brief overview of the past year's developments and where I believe XR for training and education might be heading. And what a year it has been. The change we have seen in the last 12 months is breathtaking. The innovation, the growth, the acceleration. It was only 18 months ago that some people were still saying VR is dead. But I think it's safe to say that VR is really here to stay, and it's here to cause a whole lot more disruption as well. Our community at Educators in VR has seen tremendous growth and activity with pioneering educators and grassroots innovators collaborating to find and develop content and strategies for implementing XR in education and training in almost every sector, from human resources to tourism to research, medical and healthcare, and virtual classrooms. But let's start with arguably the most important or biggest issue of the last year. And I'm talking about, of course, the pandemic. So it might seem obvious to conclude that the pandemic has boosted demand and driven adoption of VR and XR. But over the past year, I've been asking the people I meet with whether they actually think this is true. And not everybody does. Yes, Zoom fatigue has got more people exploring better options. But at the same time now, the word virtual is used for almost anything online, which can confuse people when you start talking about virtual reality. And yes, sales and usage have increased over the past year, but actually the trends were already strong before the pandemic, with new low-cost headsets hitting the market. In fact, the pandemic has actually also been responsible for slowing production and a shortage of supply of equipment. Another effect has been that location-based entertainment that had been doing the important job of reaching the general public and bringing in new users has had to almost entirely shut down because of hygiene issues. So all in all, I'm not sure that the pandemic has actually been responsible for as much growth as many people seem to believe. But still, I mean, it's hard to exaggerate the changes we are experiencing in this industry and the opportunities that this brings with it. In the past 18 months, we've witnessed an explosion of collaborative XR platforms and immersive conferences such as this one, with big players like HTC, HP, and Microsoft getting into the mix. We've also seen a whole range of new headsets hit the market just recently. And it's also hard to exaggerate just how much of a shift this is going to require of us all to make the most of these extraordinary possibilities. To us early adopters here at this conference, it might seem obvious, but we have to remember that the vast majority of businesses, schools, and institutions still has no idea of the impact this is going to have on them, whether they like it or not. And I mean, they have no idea whatsoever. So that's the bigger picture. And it seems similar with the training and industry sector. Early adopters, such as the ones we will be hearing from today, can see where learning is heading and are building, testing, iterating, and innovating right now. We don't yet have many clear and proven business models, and we don't have a mass market of willing buyers waiting for us either. But it seems more and more inevitable that it is coming over the horizon, so we need to get ready. And the figures and statistics that continue to come back from the field from places like Stanford Research, the Chinese XR market, and examples like Walmart about the effectiveness of VR, AR, and XR for learning, coupled with the visceral impact you feel every time we have a good immersive experience, means that it's getting easier to sell to decision makers. but it's just still not fast enough for some of us. It's easy also to overlook that fundamentally we are still at the beginning, at the very beginning, because big businesses are starting to invest in training with real return on investment, and universities and colleges are developing immersive learning solutions and strategies that are helping to fight disengagement and Zoom fatigue. And we have predictions from Nokia and Oculus that we will see 1 billion XR users by 2027. We have Microsoft landing a $22 billion contract for their HoloLens 2. We have Walmart purchasing 300,000 headsets to train their employees. We also have hardware manufacturers improving the form factors and the performances of their devices. And we have organizations like Neoma, who we will be hearing from just shortly, and Educators in VR, bringing effective learning and training with XR to headsets and classrooms around the world. We also have immersive VR education and their Engage platform just recently announcing Engage Oasis. And this is the first persistent metaverse for enterprise. And we even have a report from Gartner and Credit Suisse predicting that AR/VR market may even grow to the size of the current smartphone market by 2025. That's only 4 years away. So many of the indicators are positive, but there is one area in particular that tends to get the most complaints. And you might know what I'm talking about, of course, content. And it's understandable. People want more good content. But let's just for a moment think back 10 years and remember what happened as online learning became viable and popular and the content explosion that generated. Now no one thinks twice about joining an online course or turning to YouTube to learn how to fix or create something. The content that has been generated in just 10 years is phenomenal, and I believe that we will see the same thing happening with XR. So I'm not worried about content too much, and in particular for the following 4 reasons. Firstly, the amount of investment flowing into this industry and related industries such as 5G and processing power and cloud computing indicates that there is a strong belief and a real will with investors for this technology to emerge successfully and become profitable. Secondly, we have a very healthy community of early adopters experimenting and building behind the scenes. And the stage is set for us to transition beyond shiny examples and proofs of concept to genuine solutions that can deliver value at scale. Thirdly, we have yet to see AI, artificial intelligence, in full effect. Now, assuming that AI stays safe and controlled, it is set to generate content at a rate and scale we cannot even imagine. If you just look at some of the content artificial intelligence is starting to teach itself to generate, for example, pictures, poetry, and even songs, it won't be long before artificial intelligence is capable of building 3D spatial content, experiences, and even whole worlds. We will soon have more content than we know what to do with. And finally, the only thing that has greater potential than AI will always be our own imagination and curiosity, and in particular that of our youth. And what happens when these two collide? The youth, and the imagination of youth, and artificial intelligence. We have a whole generation of kids who are learning these content creation tools as we speak, and we can't even imagine what they are going to do with them. Not only that, but they are learning AI as well. Silvio Drouin of Unity Industries recently told me that all Chinese students over the age of 14 are learning XR and AI at school now. Let that sink in. That's however many hundreds of millions of students are learning XR and AI at school right now. So let's be clear. This generation is going to be fluent in XR and AI, and they will expect it to be part of their lives and jobs because they won't know any different. So if schools and businesses don't keep up, students and employees will disengage. And of course, there are more and more businesses who are starting to realize that if they don't engage with this new medium now, they may lose a competitive advantage and even fall behind. But what about return on investment? What strategies should enterprise and educational institutions adopt to succeed? Right now, if you were going to ask me, I would say stay lean, and stay flexible. Now is not the time to make grand plans, unless, of course, you have a very clear and contained strategy. Because the ground of this industry is still shifting under our feet, and it may continue like this for a while. I think one of the challenges is that many businesses and educational institutions are trying to make XR fit into the boxes that they are familiar with, which of course is natural. But this might lead them to overlook some of the most valuable affordances and gains that only emerge when you keep an open mind. We need to stay flexible and be ready to adapt to how the technology and the culture around it develops. One strategy I think you will agree is a pretty safe bet is to invest in training and skills. And by this, I mean three things. Firstly, invest in your staff to learn spatial and XR skills. You're going to need them. And if you have in-house skills, even better. Secondly, invest in XR to train your staff, if possible. It's more engaging and can be more cost-effective if we are to believe the reports coming back from the field. And thirdly, invest in your business to be able to deliver your services and training via XR. There are a lot of opportunities emerging to profit from in this sector. And I believe these 3 points really highlights just how central XR and VR training and education are to the ultimate success of this industry. We have a lot of learning, training, and educating to do before we see the kind of mass adoption that will sustain this industry in the long term. And so, in conclusion, while there might still be quite a long road ahead before mass adoption and sustainable returns, I'm still very positive for this sector in general. And it's about time that our outdated teaching and training models get a serious update. Learning should be fun, engaging, and inspiring, and it can be. And now, let's hear from our exciting lineup of speakers who are putting in the hard work of innovating and developing business models in this sector for all of us.